Hey, it's Soul with another video. This one's gonna be a weird one. Another weird one. But I at least wanna thank you first for clicking and joining me today because, well, I'm gonna get into some weird lore kind of territory here. Today I'm gonna talk about the Naaru, or at least sort of, because, well, originally I wanted to get into the origins of the Naaru, and then follow that up with what they might be up to in the Warcraft universe. But then I just kind of got stuck. I got stuck at the very beginning with the whole origin part, and then I kept going down deeper and deeper into these weird and crazy thoughts, and then I came to all sorts of weird questions and conclusions like, why does anything matter anymore? But I'm not talking about life. I'm just, talking about the Warcraft universe. So I want to share this strange, weird journey that I went down, and I want to hear your thoughts. Of course, I'm going to cite references here and there, but for the most part, what's going in my head it's what's going on in my head. It's going to be a lot of headcanon. In fact, you could say that I'm really set in my ways when it comes to how I think the overall story of Warcraft is going to go, at least on a cosmic level. I just did a video about this, so some of what you're going to hear is going to sound pretty familiar. I'm just kind of shoving this down your throat, imprinting it into your brain, so that one day you too will buy into my theory. So, the Naaru. We don't really know too much about them. We don't know how they go to the bathroom, how they keep themselves clean, their favorite food, if they can drown, among other things. But according to the Warcraft Chronicle, the origins of the Naaru come from they being this early product of light fragments that coalesced together during the earliest moments of the Great Dark Beyond's creation. And as a reminder, the Great Dark Beyond it's pretty much everywhere where the Warcraft franchise happens. It was created when the energies of light and void smashed together and went skaboosh, and this resulting Big Bang produced all sorts of chaotic energies that, over countless number of years, it settled on this very convenient diagram that we have today. So far, the light in its purest form are represented by the Naaru, these fragments of the original Big Bang event that didn't happen to get caught up in this maelstrom of chaos and didn't end up being recycled into arcane, life, energy, or fell stuff. Light is just one of the 6 so-called primal elements that make up the Great Dark Beyond. And between all of these elements is this uneasy balance. However, we're learning more and more that there are cosmic forces out there that are trying to disrupt said balance. Here's what we're sure of, at least so far. The Titans are the most powerful beings that reside within the Great Dark Beyond, and they can harness all of the Great Dark Beyond's powers to a horrifying degree. Think of them as like champions of Azeroth, but they're like level 9,000 or something. Maybe it's by their nature, but the Titans gave themselves the job of ordering the universe, probably because they were so powerful that they might as well do it. So they're just like cosmic janitors. And they did an okay job. Also widely accepted as fact is that the Void has been working to disrupt this balance by working from outside reality, outside the Great Dark Beyond, by using its strength to throw old gods all over the place in this effort to devour everything within. We know that Sargeras, who was a Titan, got desperate when he learned of this Void threat, so he himself decided to disrupt the balance by wielding the Fel and execute on this grand burning crusade. His job as a cosmic janitor hasn't changed, but instead of keeping things orderly or trying to be meticulous about how to handle problems, he just decided to burn it all down. This next bullet point is also true, but we're not quite sure just to the extent of how successful they're being, but the Naaru have their own crusade going on with their so-called Army of the Light, which is a collection of all sorts of different races, especially those who might have been displaced, all of which team together to purify the worlds of corruption. Although we're not even 100% sure what that means, or if it equates to restoring balance, as opposed to what the Void is doing, or is the light acting in its own interest? So those are the very few facts that we have, and now it's just a lot of, maybe. But because it wasn't mentioned very much in the Chronicle, most notably just how much time had passed between the fall of the Pantheon and all the Titans and when the recorded history of Azeroth began, I'm going to speculate that despite Sargeras' burning crusade, Frankly, he's done a pretty crap job of trying to cleanse the universe of corruption, and we've seen this in-game with void planets all over the place. But let's go back to the Naaru. The Naaru aren't just beings of light, are they? Because when you take a Naaru and drain it of its energy, then they become Dark Naaru, or a void god, although the story hasn't quite discerned what the difference is, or at least what the consequences of these differences are. But while the Naaru can go dark and cause all sorts of nastiness and destruction, the opposite can happen too. A Dark Naaru can be turned to the light with considerable effort. And that speaks a lot about the Naaru's origins and what they truly are. According to the Chronicle, at the beginning, at first, there was only light. But then over time, as the light shifted around and left pockets of nothingness, that is basically what became the void. We can try our best to understand this like it's some sort of entropic force, like the absence of light turns that preoccupied space into the void or something, but really we can't even really begin to fully understand just how that works, because what happened out there happened outside of reality, and where nothing would make sense anyway. Or maybe I'm just trying to cop out of it by saying, well, that's not part of our reality, our feeble brains would never understand, but we're forced to just kind of leave it at that for now. So instead, I'll work with what I have within the confines of the Warcraft universe. So back in the day, way back in the day, when Velen had escaped with his fellow Draenei 20-something thousand years ago, the Naaru Lura was captured by Kil'jaeden because he was pissed, and he was like, grr, I'm so mad. I'm so mad, I'm gonna lock you up. And so he locked up that Naaru. And then 25,000 years passed. I guess he just forgot about it. The Naaru didn't rot, it didn't starve, but we can say that the light from this Naaru decayed, and it turned into void, which now makes me wonder, what is it that keeps the Naaru in their light state? I'm just guessing here, there might be a source that I missed, but the Naaru seem to draw energy from the emotions that are around them. In this case, it'd be like the light. So light-based Naaru, they draw their energy from hope and courage. But without having something like that to draw upon or inspire them, the Naaru is going to, well, just like any normal person, they'd flip out, they go insane, they get depressed and fall into these negative emotions like hopelessness and doubt. They go dark. And now, some headcanon. Now, if the Naaru can be either light or dark, and the light-based Naaru formed at the beginning of the known universe, who's to say that the Dark Naaru didn't also form way back then too? Like dark clouds of depression coalesced together and created these Dark Naaru. Well, how come that's not a thing? If that were the case though, if Dark Naaru was always a thing, that doesn't explain why there isn't an army of the dark that are cruising around in their own spaceship called the Voidakar, just dropping old god torpedoes on unsuspecting planets. Maybe it's because the Chronicle didn't cover this, maybe it's because Blizzard just hasn't really gone through with this whole light versus void idea at the time. Maybe that's just not how Dark Naaru work, and the void just employs the old gods instead. The Naaru are just like a bonus thing. So if the Naaru are, I guess, malleable, if they can be either light or dark depending on their external influences or based on solitude or anything like that, we could almost think of the Naaru as sort of like a representation of what exists outside of reality. It's this conflict versus void and light, and they can change their form. The difference, of course, is what I said. The Naaru are contained within our reality, so they're subject to external influences like being surrounded by a culture that expresses emotions that either make them light or dark, or popping all your cooldowns and lusts and DPSing them down, or an I-beam, I don't know. So if I haven't lost you already, here's where I really started to just kind of lose my mind. So if you want to call me out in the comments and be like, dude, this is a bunch of crazy talk, that's okay. This is crazy talk. The Naaru as a race or a creature, they're not automatically defined by being something that's associated with the light or with the void, because with effort they can be one or the other. The Great Dark Beyond is an expanse that's governed by primal elements. Light and void, fel and arcane, life and death, chocolate. Between life, death, arcane, and fel, they're not exactly opposites of one another, but they're more like cycle states. So life and death, that's a cycle. Sargeras, he tried to wield the Fel and disrupt that balance, cause chaos across the Great Dark Beyond, but then he was stopped by the Pantheon, along with many others. Between the primal powers of life and death, we're starting to explore the possible imbalance that comes from that because of the actions of Sylvanas. Without the Titan Pantheon or Sargeras, there are no janitors to help clean up what's going on in the Great Dark Beyond. So that leaves the Light and the Void, the two cosmic powers that are now trying to disrupt the balance in their own way. The Void is littering the Great Dark Beyond with all these old gods, and the Light, well, they're on this radiant crusade, as I'm going to call it, to purify worlds, whatever the heck that means. So we're seeing, in super slow motion, the events that may decide whether the Great Dark Beyond becomes a territory for the Light or for the Void. Looking from the outside in, it almost looks as if the Great Dark Beyond is like a Naaru, but on a huge, on an astronomical scale. It could be metaphorical. It could be literal. Like, are we inside a giant Naaru? I know I'm talking crazy now, but just keep thinking about this. Like, back during the Legion invasion, the priests, or disciplined priests, they used Light's Wrath to purify Soraka. Soraka was a void god. It was imprisoned in the Netherlight Temple. And using Light's Wrath, they were able to purify it into a Naaru, who is now named Sara. So who's to say that outside of our reality, there's some doofus channeling their own artifact weapon into the Great Dark Beyond itself, and what we're seeing from that is this old god corruption. What if that doofus channeling that thing called himself a Void Lord? This is one of those theories that asserts that our universe is just one little tiny dot, just a nothing in this great chasm. Universes of universes. And even the greatest battles, the most epic stuff that we'll ever do, it's just another bloop, another drop of water. Just a swing of the pendulum, one more tick on the clock, and just one tiny ripple in the water. This is one of those things that make you question your existence in the universe, and for a while I found myself a little bit lost in these thoughts, but here's what I'm gonna leave you with. Is it possible for a Naaru to be neither light nor void? Like, can it be neutral? We haven't seen this before, and when we reflect that on the Warcraft universe, it makes you wonder if there is any hope for it at all. Like, are we really seeing a slow-mo version of our universe being corrupted or purified? And is that going to mean, no matter how things go, is that going to mean the end of life as we know it? Or is it possible for the Titans, including Azeroth, to get off its butt and wield the powers of the rest of the Great Dark Beyond, Arcane, Fel, Life, and Death together, to resist both corruption and purification, and simply allow the Great Dark Beyond to continue existing? I'm going to talk about the concept of this third player in another video, but I hope that this ride wasn't too bumpy, because this was all crazy theory and speculation, mostly crazy theory, so feel free to disagree, most definitely, and share your thoughts in a comment below. Of course, like and subscribe, and a big thanks to all the patrons and Twitch subscribers for making this all possible. I will see you folks later. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.